Right. So a little bit of transfer news. Big up to every single person. Looks like Liverpool might potentially be in for Denzel Dumfries. Into Milan, right back, right wing back, whichever way you kind of want to, whichever way you want to look at it. It's an interesting one. It really is because I've said for a long time Liverpool do need another right back. Dumfries wasn't someone that I particularly looked at, but he was definitely someone that I thought, okay, maybe in terms of price, I didn't know what that price would potentially look like, but I think it's now been reported that it could be 21 million, give or take. Is that a bad deal? I don't think so, particularly. I think, you know, Liverpool are in a position now where you've got two right backs, one of which in Bradley, who's extremely injury prone. You've got Frimpong, who's showing that he's, I guess, semi injury prone is sort of looking like. Also as well, you can kind of see that he's not really a right back kind of thing. I feel like he is a player that needs to kind of play further forward in order to get really the best out of him. He can obviously slot in there, of course he can, but I just feel that's not really his strongest position. So you're probably best off, just putting him in, in that kind of right wing back kind of role. Um, so yeah, again, I know people look at this Dumfries and listen, I'm not even going to sit here and try and lie to you and say, yeah, I think he's a really solid right back or anything, like that. I like a Livramento, those kind of fullbacks. But again, he's kind of injury prone as well, and I don't know how much that would potentially cost from a Newcastle. So when I do look at the landscape when we're talking about, defenders, especially at the fullback area, yeah, it's not the greatest. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna say that there's an abundance of choice when it does come, to these fullbacks and stuff like that. So I can maybe understand a little bit in regards to, trying to figure out as to who you should buy down that side. Maybe you just look at it and think, maybe I always say with Liverpool, maybe like a stopgap. We don't really do enough of those in terms of deals, where you get a player who he's only here for now. Everybody always looks at it, fans anyway. We always look at these deals and it's like, oh, this is our centre back pairing for the next 10 years. Oh, we're going to have him for the next 10 years, the next 10 years. I'm like, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you actually need a player who can bridge the gap, someone who can be here for 2-3 years at max. And he's only here purely for the fact of when I don't know, you've got a player in the academy, you've got a young player who just needs a bit more time, who needs to develop in their position and things like that, then they have the time to do so, whilst also knowing that you've got that experienced player in that kind of position. So if you're talking like profile and everything, I don't really have a problem with like a Dumfries as such. If you're talking about him as an actual just defender, I mean, he's a lot more athletic. I think he's more athletic than the both of them, actually, to be honest with you. I feel like a player who can go up and down that, that right hand side, but do it, I think, better than both Bradley and Frimpong. I think I look at that and I think to myself, yeah, for someone who's obviously nowhere near as fast as a Frimpong, I feel like he is able to go up and down quite well on that side, but he is more in the Frimpong mold in terms of he's someone who he's not great in he's not great in an attacking area. Like Frimpong looks more comfortable, I would say, but he can be in that area, and I feel like he prefers to be in that kind of area, because I feel like that's where I don't know, maybe just a tad bit more license, a bit more freedom. So yeah, but Frimpong's probably better in my opinion in that kind of area. But defensively, I do think he's all right. He has his moments. I'm not gonna lie. Again, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. He has had moments that I've seen, but then I don't know. It's a weird one. It really is. It really, really is. He's had moments, but then I feel like he's a lot more solid. Like, he's definitely more solid than Frimpong. I could tell you that much. Is he more solid than Bradley? You know what I say about Bradley? He's just hella enthusiastic. So yeah. I'd feel more comfortable with him in that right back position, kind of thing, as opposed to a Bradley, because I always feel like with Bradley, if you just got him defending, then I feel like he'd be fine. But where you ask him to invert and do this and do that, you can see Bradley's not that comfortable in those kind of forward areas. If I'm being honest, it always seems like it's quite forced when he's in those kind of positions. So whereas I don't feel that way with, say, a Frimpong as an example, who's a lot more comfortable, but when you ask him to defend, he looks a bit more, yeah, it's uncomfortable settings. But then I feel that Dumfries is probably the best blend of both. He looks comfortable in that area and he looks comfortable going back. He doesn't excel at any one of those two things. Like, say, Bradley's better at defending, Frimpong's better at going forward, but he has the mix and balance. So I think you could get someone like him as more of a stopgap, if I'm being, totally honest with you. And next up, obviously, a player that people talk about a lot. I will be doing a video on Adam Wharton. There's quite mixed feelings in regards to him. I see quite a few people who have spoken about Adam Wharton and they don't feel that that's what Liverpool need and stuff like that. And I always laugh because I'm like, listen, don't let him go to Manchester City and all of a sudden everyone's going to be sitting there saying, oh, we should have signed him because that's what we could have used in the midfield and yada, yada, yada. I think he's a really good player. I do like him. I think what he is he's not, obviously everyone wants a 6. Now I'm always intrigued when people say they want a 6. Do you want it like old school Chelsea 4-3-3, Makaleli in that 6 role, and then you've got your 2 8s kind of thing? Is that what people are kind of looking for? Because Makaleli almost had like that area to himself. Don't cross the halfway line type of vibes. Let everybody else do that. So the two 8s, you can do that, and the 3 forwards, that's you. That's 5 players in that, and obviously maybe fullbacks and stuff like that. Is that what people want? Because I'm starting to get it a little bit more. Before I didn't really understand it, but I feel like that's what people want. They want Makalele, don't move across the halfway line, just stay here. You're not allowed to really do too much in that kind of area. If so, then there's no one. I'll be honest with you. No one of quality, in my personal opinion, who can kind of do that role. But I do think that with Adam Wharton, what he is you'd have to play him in a pivot, in my personal opinion, and that pivot player needs to then obviously be a bit more defensive minded, I guess. So I think maybe if you had a 3-man midfield, obviously I always talk about them, so I'm going to do it anyway, where you've got Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, and João Neves. Fabian Ruiz maybe isn't as defensive, but obviously he puts in that kind of work. But then you've got João Neves or Vitinha who can obviously operate in those kind of roles. So yeah, I think someone like Wharton, a fantastic progressor of the ball. And I think maybe that's something that Liverpool need, because I do feel like in that midfield, the ball doesn't really, maybe it's tactically, I don't know. But I don't feel like the ball gets forward quick enough. I always feel like it's always having to be recycled. It's always, okay, we need to wait for this. Now, that's not necessarily all their fault. You could look at the forward line a little bit. But at the same time, I look at the midfield and I'm like, I don't trust any of them really to kind of do that. If I'm being honest with you, Gravenberch is someone who has to run with the ball in order to kind of progress play. Do you always need that? No. Yeah, Wharton's definitely an interesting one. But like I said, we'll take a deeper look at, him as a player. But obviously 80 million, bit of a hefty price. Is that what Liverpool need necessarily? You get what I'm saying? Well, when I say need, is that what Liverpool are willing to pay? Do you think Liverpool should pay for something like that? I don't know. And lastly, Diomande. Diomande is another one I will be doing a video about. He is, I keep saying interesting. That's like my favorite phrase, but he is interesting. Do I think he's worth the money? No. Do I think Liverpool should sign him? No. Would I be mad at signing him? No. So, yeah, he's one of those ones where I'm like, don't buy into the hype, but that's not to say he's not a good player. Just because I've said that, that's not me saying, oh, he's a bad player and, you shouldn't. No. It's just don't buy too much into the hype. It's one season. He's done really well. He's showcasing his talent. Is that enough for people? I think Liverpool done it with Xhaka. They've done it with Leone. Is that enough? I always question things like that. Always. I never trust one season, unless your one season is, I don't know, of like a stupid Mbappe level. When Mbappe broke through at Monaco, fair enough. But none of them are even close to that kind of level. So I look at that and I think to myself, that may cause, let's see, because fans are very fickle. Yeah, I'm saying fans are very fickle. And if you guys know me, I've got no patience. So, yeah. But like I said, we'll do a video on Diomande. It's about 80 to 100 million for him. So again, is that something that you feel the club should be paying for a player like him? Me personally, no. Do I think he could potentially get there? Yeah. I think he needs to spend a season or two. A minimum, he needs to stay at RB Leipzig next season. I think for him, in order for us, not even us, but I also feel that when you're just looking at when you're trying to sign a player, you don't know if it's going to be, if this is just a one season flash in the pan. Look at Darwin Núñez. He had that brilliant season before he joined Liverpool. Prior to that, do you get what I'm saying? And then poor player. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, just really couldn't work it here. I understand also you wanting to get ahead, of everything, but I just don't think he's one of those players that you need to really gamble on. I'll be totally honest with you. I think there are better players out there, players who can come in now, players who are probably even got a higher ceiling than a Diomande. But again, that's not to say that he's not going to turn out to be a good player. I just think, for me personally, I just need a bit more evidence when we're talking about a player, like that, especially when you're talking about someone who could potentially come in, into that attack. Yeah, just not really my thing. But listen, we'll wait and see. Now, just quickly, I was obviously looking at this, so I just filled in the team, would I say so to speak. I haven't put in any of the other players, 'cause I don't really know, just more focusing on the three players that, I've just been speaking about. So obviously you got Dumfries, you got Wharton here, and then obviously you got Diomande. Now, the Diomande one is quite interesting because I don't know if he would come in to play left or right. I know he can play in both positions. Maybe he comes in and just plays on the right hand side. Maybe he comes in on the left. Obviously, we can always just swap it. And I think when you're looking at, say, for example, a Dumfries, if Liverpool do go which is what I think they would do anyways, with the normal traditional, so to speak, back four, I think you will get quite similar. And I do think it also gives you the option of playing with three at the back, which might work in Arne Slot's favour if he's obviously the man here, next season. Because obviously he loves to bomb up and down. And as I said, he can always get forward and be able to get back. If he does bomb forward, obviously I feel like Diomande, from what I've seen of him, he is someone who does like, even though he is predominantly right-footed, he does like to cut in field, which then obviously can give the space to someone like a Dumfries, who probably, if I'm being honest, more likely would look like to operate in these kind of areas. So you're probably looking at, you got your double pivots there. It's almost going to look a little bit like this, I feel, at times, which may or may not be good for a Kirkes, because I feel like he wants to be doing this down that left-hand side. But I do think that a Dumfries and a Diomande could work in terms of their own, relationship. But I do think this is what you'll start seeing more often than not. Whether that means potentially, if a Kirkes was to go, can Adam Wharton slot into that kind of I say, into that left-sided centre back kind of role, or just operating there, or you push one of the centre backs, whether it's Virgil out there with Adam Wharton kind of slotting in. I doubt you'd want to do that anyway. So I am looking more towards potentially something like this, and then you've got this happening in the middle of the park, where it's kind of, let's move Kirkes over here, Dumfries, and then whoever the other midfielder potentially is. You could have something potentially like that going forward. Again, it will just kind of depend on if again, this would just be guessing, if Diomande was to play on the right hand side. That's something that I guess you could potentially look at. I think it could be Gravenberch as an example. I know it's number 8, but just the other pivot player. It could be a Szoboszlai, it could be a Gravenberch, it could really be anybody, to be honest with you. But I would much prefer someone like Wharton almost being in these kind of areas. So really, from, I would say, let's say where this number 9 is till about here, I feel like that's where he's most effective. So really, if you're looking at it, let's just use the players as an example. There we go. If you guys can see, got 7, 8, 9, and 3. I feel like these are the kind of areas where you want a Wharton kind of operating in, from here till about here, because I feel like he can always get that ball into these, let's move that, into these kind of positions, whether it's looking there, whether it's skinning someone, but being able to turn away from someone and I'm looking straight into there, straight into a Dumfries, straight into, let's say, a Diomande as an example, or into the number 9, if, the number 9 is going to then drop a little bit deeper to collect the ball. He can do that pass absolutely fine. It's not necessarily about him spraying passes, which is, again, not saying that you don't need that, but I feel like he's able to get the ball forward quick enough because he can always see that pass and he can always make that pass. Whereas I don't look at the midfield currently and think, yeah, he can make that pass, or I trust him to make that pass. It's always, you look at Gravenberch, he has to run with the ball, as I mentioned before. And it's always, when he does release it, it's like you've made a 20, 30 yard, kind of run to just pop it to the guy literally right next to you, which is always funny. McAllister's constantly just running around. Zabozala would prefer to like spray it into these kind of areas, or again, he's just passing it between himself and one of the centre backs. Whereas Wharton, I feel, would always be looking forward, always be looking forward, always be looking forward. So I do think that that could potentially be a benefit. But again, I think it will depend more so on exactly what it is Liverpool want to do within that kind of area of the pitch, because it's not going to just be as simple as Wharton goes in there, because especially if you do get a Dumfries as well, what do you then do with someone like Dumfries? Because obviously you can't always keep bombing forward if you're playing with a back four. You'd probably have to play with a back three, which I know quite a few people would like Liverpool to to obviously do. And then, yeah, Diomande, like I said, he's someone who can kind of float in these kind of positions, whether Liverpool start having a bit more of a fluid, attacking line, whereby the attack can, yeah, just be a bit more fluid. It's not so stale and boring, and he stays left wing and that person stays right wing. Maybe you start to mix it around a little bit, and I think that that will help massively. I really, really do. I think it's all very. He's a left winger. He's a right winger. That's the striker. That's about it. Sometimes the left wing and striker, if it's Ekatike anyway, they might swap between each other, but really and truly, they kind of just stay within their own kind of zone. So yeah, again, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Like I said, we'll take a deeper dive into these players and things like that as to, checking out what it is that they can do, what it is that they can't do. But just like a little look into it. I'd love to know what your thoughts are behind it in terms of the players that Liverpool are potentially looking at. Are these players of interest to you? Do you think Liverpool need a different profile of player in defense, midfield, and the attack? And if you do, let me know who those players are in the comment section, people. And I'll catch you guys real soon. Peace.